household.
A state of emergency declared in Carolina Beach, North Carolina, where a major weather system is hammering the shore.
You can obviously hear the wind whipping off the quick-moving water on this inlet. The area has already seen several inches of rain from this tropical system. Emergency management tells me they are obviously monitoring this storm in real time. They are bracing for the possibility for more flood-related emergencies and the possibility for a pop-up tornado.
That's ABC's Sean Coffey reporting from Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. A 2-week-long Coast Guard hearing is underway in South Carolina, focused on last year's deadly voyage by the OceanGate submersible to visit the Titanic. All 5 on board were killed when it imploded.
In testimony, OceanGate's former engineering director told the Coast Guard panel he was fired because he did not approve of Titan traveling to Titanic. He said there were warning signs in early tests.
We hadn't really gone deep enough, long enough, and we were flexing 37% more. So it was the first warning.
Officials revealing one of the last messages from Titan to its support ship was all good here as they were descending toward Titanic. Alex Stone, ABC News.
TikTok and the federal government are in court battling a law that could result in the social media app being banned in the U.S. TikTok argues the ban is unconstitutional and unfairly targets the company. The argument met with skepticism because the ban passed Congress with bipartisan support. Dave Packer, ABC News.
My doctor told me my blood pressure is borderline. I figured I could worry about it or do something about it. So I took control with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula. It works safely and naturally to help maintain healthy blood pressure with a custom blend of garlic, vitamins, and minerals. And it's odor-free. I'm taking charge with Garlic Healthy Blood Pressure Formula.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
I'm Bill Walter, KBNU News. News is brought to you by Logan Extermination. Crews battling the Red Creek fire in Farmington are not only dealing with unfavorable conditions, but also encounters with massive rattlesnakes. The fire, discovered September 10th and determined to have been caused by a lightning strike, is located in a remote area with steep, rocky terrain. Firefighting crews have faced rolling debris and poor footing. On Friday, Uinta Wasatch Cache National Forest authorities released a video of a large rattlesnake, sharing that firefighters have found they are not the only ones on the slope. The creature caught on camera appears to be a Great Basin rattlesnake, one of the most common in Utah. According to the National Park Service, this species ranges in size from 16 to 64 inches. By Saturday, Utah fire authorities reported the Red Creek fire was 25% contained. Authorities recovered 90 pounds of marijuana and $10,000 in cash at an administrative traffic checkpoint in Woodside, Utah. Helper City Police said they were assisting Wellington Police, Emery County deputies, and Utah Highway Patrol troopers with a checkpoint on SR 6 at milepost 266 on Friday. During the checkpoint, officials said Helper City Police Officer Lara Olson made contact with 2 occupants of a vehicle, later identified as Taylor Terrazon and Danette Bonner, both out of Texas. Officer Olson reportedly picked up on the scent of marijuana and proceeded to search the vehicle. Authorities said she discovered 90 pounds of marijuana, $10,000 in cash, drug paraphernalia, and personal use marijuana products. Terrazon and Bonner were booked into the Emery County Jail. The investigation remains ongoing. And a 16-month-old baby was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries after a multi-car crash on northbound I-15 near 12300 South. Agent Leo Flores with the Utah Highway Patrol said a passenger car was traveling too fast for the wet road, causing the car to spin out. The car with a male driver, a female passenger, and 2 children in car seats hit a wall. A motorcyclist reportedly laid his bike down to avoid the crash. A Sprinter van then tried to avoid crashing but hit the first car. An additional car then lost control and hit the wall, according to Flores. Most of the people involved had minor injuries. The 16-month-old baby, however, was hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. Officials believe the injuries are due to improper retainment. KBNU weather brought to you by Triton Medical Supply and Transportation, a partner for your medical needs. Top quality medical soft goods like incontinence supplies and oxygen needs. Go to mytritonsupply.com or call 435-557-6687. Showers, possibly a thunderstorm tonight, low in the upper 40s, and then showers and possibly a storm tomorrow. Cooler, high temperature only in the low 60s, around 62 degrees. Still a 60% chance of showers on Tuesday night, 40% chance on Wednesday. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
Hi there, we're your new neighbors, the Voles. I'm Horrible, and this is my wife, Terrible. Hi! It's been such a great summer, we gotta have an army of children. Now we're fixing to tear up your yard. The only warning sign of us is some surface tunneling holes, and then boom! Yard death! What do you think? Should we get started, Ma? Yep. These guys aren't gonna call it troops at Logan Extermination.
Voles are a problem. They can tear up your lawn and garden. But there is something you can do. Call Logan Extermination at 752-8450.
Breaking news, stimulating talk. News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Metal roofing lasts 3 times longer than shingles, so naturally, you would assume it would be quite a bit more expensive as well. Well, that isn't the case. The cost similarities between asphalt shingles and metal roofing are quite similar. However, the benefits of a metal roof far exceed that of a shingled roof. Palmer's Metal Mart manufactures high-quality metal panels for roofs and walls at amazing prices. Since you buy direct from the manufacturer, you save more money. Metal roofing is an investment that pays off time and time again. Don't settle, choose metal. Right now, save 15% on stock metal panels and 10% on our steel board and batten siding panels. Amazing look for any project. Come to Palmer's Metal Mart today and see how you can save on metal roofing and siding. Also, Palmer's Metal Mart now offers steel building kits, 100% steel structure. Ask a sales associate for details and our amazing introductory sale on steel buildings. Palmer's Metal Mart, your metal roofing source.
I'm Larry Gelwicks, the getaway guru with Morris Columbus Travel and Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. The Ovation of the Seas cruise ship is coming to the West Coast with new Mexican Riviera itineraries sailing from Los Angeles. Enjoy huge discounts off your cruise fare when you book your next Royal Caribbean cruise with Morris Columbus Travel.
Come on and get away, Morris Columbus.
Hi, John Weiss here. It's hunting season, and that means it's time to gear up and hit the trails with the best rugged vehicles. During our Ram Power Days, you'll get $7,500 total cash allowance when you purchase a brand new 2024 Ram 1500 Bighorn truck. See dealership for details. There's never been a better time to get behind the wheel of a tough, reliable ride. Open season is Ram season, so stop by Heritage Auto, your hometown dealer with the biggest deals.
Overwhelmed by Social Security and Medicare options? October 2nd at 6 p.m., Adams Wealth Advisors and Senior Benefits Insurance Services invite you to a free seminar that'll simplify these crucial decisions. Experts Jaden May, National Social Security Advisor, and Sherry Crosby, licensed Medicare agent, will help optimize your Social Security benefits and help guide you through Medicare options and costs. October 2nd, 6 p.m., come learn your options with Social Security and Medicare. Go to adamswealthadvisors.com/SS to reserve your spot today. Understanding your options makes all the difference.
KVNU's For the People with Jason Williams and Bill Walter.
And it is Utah known as the fraud capital of the world. Not because we have more people committing fraud, but because we have so many people falling for it.
Going beneath the headlines and connecting you to the newsmakers.
The radio is a great way to get the word out to a lot of people in an emergency. So we thank you for your help and being a partner with us.
For the People on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM, 102.1 FM. Online at 610kvnu.com and on the KVNU mobile app.
Welcome to KVNU's For the People. It is Monday, September 16th.
hear that news story there Bill read? Still kind of rolling a little bit from that. Firefighters here in Utah, not only dealing with the risk to their life and limb, fighting firefighters, but fighting wildfires sparked by lightning in this case, but also giant rattlesnakes. That is, hats off, folks, men and women out there keeping these wildfires under control, keeping our cities and towns and homes and sheds safe, keeping our canyons from burning. Snakes. Man. I can't imagine, trying to pay attention to the fire, trying to do your job, and you're also looking for 3-foot rattlesnakes at the same time. Makes sense considering the area, but along these lines, I was thinking about this last week as I read about some of the wildfires that had been sparked by thunderstorms moving through, and unfortunately one human-caused fire that is burning in central Utah. I think they have under control as of this morning. You can see all the fires burning and how many acres have burned so far this year at the Utah Fire Info website. I linked that on our Facebook page, but it's just utahfireinfo.org. Also search Utah Fire Info on all the social media platforms. They're on all of them, including YouTube. And you can keep up with that there. But I was thinking about this, wondering how people that are interested. We had a few listeners over the last few months as we've talked about the anticipated lengthy wildfire season this year. Things are cooling down a bit, but things were so wet in the spring and so dry in the summer that the Utah Forester's Office is still predicting, though not saying for sure, that wildfire season could extend well into October. Previous years, we've had wildfire season extend into November. That was in 2021. But likely not quite that bad this year, but it's not going to wrap up in September. We know that. There's just too much dry fuel out there, and if we don't start getting the moisture that we sometimes don't get in September, then the conditions aren't going to change. Though it helps that temperatures are dropping, you still have a lot of dry fuel, a lot of days of sunshine and 70, 80 degree highs for the next few weeks. So, yeah, it's not wrapping up anytime soon. Listeners had inquired about this program, and I wanted to talk about it opening the show today a little bit. We have a lot to get to, so I'll jump right in on it. But it's called the Utah Fire Corps Support. And there's a link I've posted on our Facebook page. You can also find it at firemarshal.utah.gov. And the Fire Corps program here in Utah, and it works in conjunction with the National Volunteer Fire Council. And they provide several ways to establish a fire corps in your local community. This launched here in Utah, and it's existed nationwide in various places for more than 100 years. But it launched here in Utah in 2018, and the National Volunteer Fire Council offers virtual trainings through an online portal. And the topics range from behavioral health in fire emergency services, cancer in the fire service. That's something we don't talk about or think about nearly as often as we should, but there is a growing epidemic of cancer in not just firefighter professionals, but volunteer firefighter crews because of the toxins they're exposed to, because they're there on the ground surrounded by wildfire smoke, and a lot of that can be really bad for you. There's also classes they teach on accountability in the scene of a fire, both for the public and for firefighters. They teach some pretty technical courses that would obviously be meant for members of fire corps and firefighting teams directly, but may be of interest to the public as well. One class called Situational Awareness, the Stealth Killer of First Responders, and also General Health in the fire service. It's a program that the Fire Corps and the National Volunteer Fire Council offer these trainings on, also one on wildfire assessment. That one would be really interesting to the public. But this is a national grassroots effort to augment fire and EMS professionals. enhance their services directly by engaging with them and up training, if you will, for them, but also as a way to engage the communities here in Utah and in Idaho. And they also run one in, I think, parts of Colorado. Some cities have signed on with this in Colorado. Again, here in Utah, the state has signed on, so this is statewide, but this is they're inviting community members to be a part of these programs, mainly to assist in non-emergency situations. Similar to Utah has something called the Medical Reserve Corps. You can sign up for that anytime you want to. Simply Google Medical Reserve Corps, and you'll find the website. I don't remember it off the top of my head here, and can't talk and search at the same time. But Medical Reserve Corps is something that was activated quite a bit during the pandemic to help local health departments with vaccination clinics, and also to help get word out on the latest, safety precautions and more to local businesses and community members. So it was, and the Medical Reserve Corps has been around for years, but saw most of their activity in 2020, 21, and 22. You can also still be a part of that Medical Reserve Corps and receive certain training. They do free training on CPR on a regular basis, and also emergency response first aid, things like that. They also do trainings for earthquake preparedness and more. And the goal is to get members of the community, again, as an augmenting force, to have members of the community who are trained and knowledgeable to an extent where, they're obviously not going to be able to replace fire response teams or EMS, first responders, but they can greatly help in some situations, especially a situation that's affecting, a mass of people or an entire community. So this fire corps, when it comes to wildfires, they're utilizing community support to help departments increase their capacity when needed, and also help first responders increase capacity when needed. The program Volunteer Spotlight that they have for this month, to give you an example of who this is for, a Utahn, her name Natalie Tolan, and she's worked for the Fire Corps Volunteer Program for 9 years now. She lives in Layton, and she said this started out as just interest in some of the classes they offer, and thinking that it might be nice to know some of these things. She, at the time, was working at a daycare in Layton and had small children of her own. And she said, she was watching the news and the far too frequent headlines about school shootings, and she got thinking, this is something she might want to know, what to do in the case of an emergency. Again, not to replace first responders like law enforcement, EMS, or fire departments, but to have a lower level of training on certain issues where maybe she could be extremely helpful in first aid situations, or just crowd control in the case of an event that's affecting a school or a church or something like that. So she said she took some of these classes, and she was at the time, again, working part-time in a daycare, and the other half of her day a stay-at-home mom. And she said she'd spend a few hours out of every week just kind of going through these trainings. And suddenly she realized after a couple of years of this that she had amassed nearly 4,000 volunteer hours in a year. And so in 2016, she was inspired also when her father, a veteran police officer for Salt Lake City, passed away. And she said, kind of in his memory, she wanted to do something. And she didn't have the ability or the desire to, fully go through the police academy and become a member of law enforcement, but she wanted to do something to honor her father's memory. So she started doing this. And her volunteerism began just 2 months after her father's passing in 2006. And she started taking these classes again, and quickly was CERT certified, Community Emergency Response Team. And then if you're CERT certified, which they do here in Cache Valley, check with the Bear River Health Department has some information on that. But within a couple of months, she was actually part of a CERT team, and they were regularly volunteering time for the needs of their community. She said, I felt like I was doing something important, and it really was only taking a bit of my time, like maybe a couple of hours a month. And then she said she started taking her family with her as well, got them to sign up and start volunteering. And after a short period of time, about 18 months, a job supervisor offered her a position as a program coordinator for her community in Layton. She said she initially turned it down because of the demands of her home and her part-time job, but she said a month later she came back and asked if it was still open, and they said yes, and she accepted it. And she said she's been doing this since. She has expanded the programs in Davis County at large, not just Layton, to include CERT training and fire corps training, some of the ones I mentioned, some of those courses I mentioned, and this volunteer fire program that trains members of the community to assist fire departments and help communities prepare and manage fire emergencies. Now, some of this is also preventative. Some of the courses they offer, some of the information you'll pick up through this volunteer fire corps program here in Utah, it actually would be useful to you, probably, how to at least somewhat you can't fully wildfire-proof a home, right? But you can somewhat wildfire-proof a home and a yard. And then you can pass that on to your neighborhood as well. And they encourage you to get your neighborhood together and pass on your training and say, here's some of the things that if a wildfire comes close, here's some things in your yard that might guarantee your home goes up in flames, and some easy things you can do to lower the odds of that happening if a wildfire does come up to your back fence or something like that. It's very cool stuff. So also, Tolan was key in starting something here in Utah that's just getting off the ground called the Junior Fire Corps. And this is targeted at sixth graders specifically. The goal is to get them talking about emergency response training, best practices, what to do in the case of a wildfire or an earthquake or a tragedy in your neighborhood, a bad car accident even, if you, even as a sixth grader, happen to be there on the scene. And she said some of the things they've trained the sixth graders are basically, if they're around a bunch of other kids, how to make sure everybody stays out of the way and stays safe. But having one sixth grader, she said, in an entire school who is trained on what best practices are could save lives. Simply having someone who can say to the other kids, let's stay here and sit down and let the emergency response crews do their thing. She said that can be, the difference between a successful response and a total chaos when there are children involved. It's a really cool thing. So it's run through the Department of Public Safety and the Utah Fire Marshal. Again, it's called the Utah Fire Corps Support Program, and instructions on how to start a fire corps program in your community or to just individually go through the program can be found at firemarshal.utah.gov. And appreciate some listeners asking about that, giving me the idea to look into it, and that's what I found. Again, firemarshal.utah.gov for more information on the Volunteer Fire Corps, and we'll be back with more of For the People right after this.
Utah's at a crossroads. The surging economy of the last decade is not today's reality. Cache Valley is feeling the effects of rising housing costs, stagnant wages, and skyrocketing energy prices. This is not acceptable, and I know we can do better. I'm Jason Thompson, and as a successful business owner, proven job creator, and experienced city mayor, I know what it takes to ensure that Utah is heading in the right direction. But I can't do it alone. I need your vote this November. At electjasonThompson.com, learn how together we can keep Utah heading in the right direction.
Paid for by the Committee to Elect Jason Thompson.
Weather changes are tough on your transmission. As we move to colder winter weather, AMCO Transmission invites you to bring your vehicle in for preventative maintenance before the snow flies. Have a diesel pickup, Cummins, Duramax, or Power Stroke? AMCO in Logan is your transmission specialist, and they promise to get you in quickly. For over 50 years, AMCO Total Car Care has been experts in repair for transmissions, brakes, tune-ups, and more. Find your local AMCO. 75 East, 2000 North, 752-1940.
Hello?
Man, where are you? I thought you were coming.
I can't. I'm in bed with the flu.
The flu? Whoa. Grandma's about to crowd surf. Man, I'll call you back.
Don't get stuck at home with the flu. A flu shot is safe, effective, and you can get it at the same time as your COVID-19 vaccine. A flu shot is the best way to prevent the flu and its potentially serious complications. Don't get flu FOMO. Learn more at getmyflushot.org.
Brought to you by the AMA, CDC, and the Ad Council.
Two Utah State University stories. coming off of that big game, the second most famous rivalry in Utah, USU v. U of U. First famous, of course, is USU v. BYU, which plays out both on the athletic field and fields, but also in the ice cream world as well. And I'm sorry, Aggie ice cream wins every time. I don't care what those lawmakers from Utah County try to say, and they do try to say it, but they're wrong. Utah State University slapped again by the DOJ in the middle of this still quite messy situation with the athletics department and the football program. The Department of Justice, USU announced on their own news site late last week, the Department of Justice had sent a letter citing them as not of compliance with Title IX laws. This is something that it's a pretty serious thing. It can actually cost the university federal funding if they don't get in line with Title IX requirements. And all of this is focused around the football athletics program and the recent, earlier this summer, news around the firing of the coach and Bovee and others within the program. So we'll talk about that on the other side of the news, what the DOJ had to say, what USU's options are, and how this has brought this story back into the headlines for Utah State University, which I'm sure they would have preferred not to have happen, but here we are. Before we get to that, though, this is a more positive story about Utah State University. They reversed a decision that I always thought was kind of a dumb one. To do away with, a reserved number of tickets for the student body. USU's herd is famous, and with good reason. It's a little more noticeable at the men's basketball games because you're in that stadium with the confined environment, and it's harder to miss the herd doing their thing because you can hear them, and you can hear nothing else when they're doing their thing. Now, this can be certain humorous chants and cheers, but also they've done choreography before. They have done coordinated signage before. It's a really fun thing to see, and it gets students excited. It gets the crowd excited. I think it gets the players excited, and it's something to be respected, I think. And a lot of folks, myself included, thought the university kind of disrespected the student body herd. HURD, by the way, if you've never seen that written. But Utah State University recently made a decision to do away with, so for years, the student seats there was, I think it was like 1,000 seats. The reduction was 1,000 seats. So there's this part of the stadium there, Maverick Stadium, that was always thought of as the student section. And recently, Dallin Wilson, herd president and executive director of athletics and campus recreation, a student at the school, said he felt blindsided when the school announced they were planning to reduce the student section by 1,000 seats. He told Fox 13 News it was tough that it kind of came as a surprise to the students. We have a pretty good working relationship with the athletic department, so to be, to feel blindsided by this, to see some of the seats disappearing with no discussion with us was frustrating, Wilson said. This kind of became a pretty big story on social media. People were not happy about it. A student at Utah State University, Jalen Porras, went viral for saying if they're going to pay to come to this school, then they deserve every opportunity to have a seat that's rightfully theirs. Now, of course, these seats aren't free for the students, but it guaranteed a block of tickets for the students. Public outcry over this grew and grew and grew, and finally, the day before the game Saturday, so last Friday, USU sent out an email to students that finally made its way into the news over the weekend and this morning, saying they had reversed on this. They'd added those 1,000 seats back, and they kind of apologized for disrespecting the herd. They, in a statement, USU officials said, "We recognize the importance of student support for all of our USU athletic events. We're dedicated to ensuring that as many Aggies as possible can experience the thrill of the game. For the football game against Utah, we were able to add an additional 1,000 seats back to accommodate the student demand. And with this addition, the student ticket number is now returned to the 5,901, all of which have been claimed. So you heard that right. They announced this on Friday, and by the time the game happened, all 5,901 tickets had been swiped up by students. Obviously, there's demand, right? So reducing the number of seats reserved for the student body by 1,000, I don't think was a very smart decision. Obviously, they make more money off of the general admission tickets for the public, not student general admission. And I'm sure that was part of why this decision was made. I don't know, but that's my guess. USU continues to say our commitment to student game day experience remains unwavering. Moving forward, all seats in Section 117 through 121 at Maverick Stadium will be reserved for student general admission. There will also be no changes to student ticketing at the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum, and we encourage all students to secure their tickets early to guarantee a seat at every event. Your presence makes a significant difference in creating an advantage at all of our home events. So, good decision on the university's part. Unfortunate they had to be prodded into it, but good decision. Check it out. I've linked to the announcement from USU, the letter sent out to students posted today on the USU News site on our Facebook page. On the other side, also from the USU News site, posted late last week, kind of quietly in the evening, Friday evening, USU received a letter from the Department of Justice, and they got slapped for being out of compliance on Title IX requirements. All of this tying back into the news at the 1st of July of the USU Athletics Department letting go head coach of the football team, Blake Anderson, Jerry Bovee, and two others. And the environment in which all of that happened attracted the attention of the Department of Justice. And we'll talk about what they had to say about their investigation as it concluded last week. After the news with KVNU's Bill Walter.
Jason. KVNU News is brought to you by Cardalls. The man accused of fatally stabbing 4 University of Idaho students has been booked into jail in Boise after a court moved his trial. Ada County records show Brian Koberger is jailed in the state capitol, where his trial will be held. Koberger's defense attorneys argued that media coverage and strong emotions in Moscow, Idaho, where the trial originally was set, would make finding an impartial jury difficult. Kohlberger faces murder counts for the November 2022 deaths of Ethan Chapin, Zanik Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. The trial is set for June 2025. Isaac Wilson had 239 yards passing and 3 touchdowns in his first career start to lead 12th-ranked Utah to a 35-21 victory over Utah State. That game played Saturday afternoon in Logan. Wilson started in place of Cam Rising, who sat out after injuring his throwing hand against Baylor last week. 9 players caught a pass from the true freshman in his first 200-yard game. Utah beat Utah State for the 15th time in the last 16 meetings in their rivalry that dates back to 1892. Bryson Barnes led Utah State with 223 yards passing and 2 touchdowns in his first game against his former team. Rashul Faison added 115 yards rushing for Utah State. Next up for the Aggies, a road trip to Temple this coming Saturday. Jacoby Longino threw a pair of touchdown passes, and Lamar held off Weber State for a 17-16 victory Saturday night. BYU extended its winning streak to 10 games over Wyoming with a dominant 34-14 win in what could be the final meeting between the longtime rivals at War Memorial Stadium in Laramie. The Cougars jumped out to an early 14-point lead in their 80th all-time meeting with Wyoming. KVNU weather is brought to you by Logan Extermination. Wasps and spiders think they own your home's exterior. Get a full exterior spray today from Logan Extermination. Call 752-8450. Showers and possibly a thunderstorm tonight. Low in the upper 40s. Showers and a storm possible tomorrow. Cooler. High temperature in the low 60s. Still a threat of showers Tuesday night and Wednesday. Get more news at CashValleyDaily.com.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. Waiting in the golf course bushes for nearly 12 hours. What we learned today from officials investigating the latest assassination attempt on former President Trump. Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw.
The suspect didn't even get close to getting a round off, and we apprehended him and brought him to justice.
58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh is being held on federal firearm charges. An annual celebration of cultural diversity canceled today in Springfield, Ohio, after days of violent threats fueled by conspiracy theories about immigrants spread by former President Trump. A gas pipeline fire is sending a tower of flame over some Houston suburbs today. The company that runs the 20-inch pipeline says the liquefied gas has been shut off, but the fire will have to burn itself out. In court today, TikTok's lawyers arguing that a law to ban the social media platform in a few months is unconstitutional. The Justice Department says TikTok poses a national security risk. This is ABC News.
Hey, radio listeners, before we get you back to the music, let me tell you real quick about what I did that is saving me a lot of money. I got new insulation in my house. That's right. Now, I know you're thinking, boring, but have you seen the reports lately about how better insulation can save a ton of money on your energy bills? I can tell you it made a huge difference in my home. I mean, not only does the temperature stay perfect, but my energy bill is definitely down. Do what I did. Call Cardall's Insulation, 755-5012. That's 755-5012 for Cardall's Insulation.
This is Branch Office Administrator Bobby Pedrero bringing you the Daily Financial Market Report on behalf of financial advisor Clayton McMurdy and Edward Jones. Stock markets were mixed on Monday as investors await the Federal Reserve interest rate decision due out on Wednesday. The Dow Jones and S&P 500 were higher, while the technology-heavy NASDAQ moved lower. Treasury bond yields continued to hover near their lows for the year. The two-year Treasury yield, often considered a proxy for the Fed funds rate over the next 24 months, fell to 3.56%, now at its low for 2024. The move lower in yields has been driven by a combination of market expectations of Fed interest rate cuts and softer inflation and U.S. economic growth. In our view, given the S&P 500 has climbed nearly 18% this year thus far, we would expect bouts of volatility as we head into a seasonal weaker September and October period and towards the U.S. election day on November 5th. However, historically, markets tend to recover in the final 2 months of the year in U.S. election years. Today, U.S. equities closed higher. The Dow closed up 228 points. The NASDAQ closed up 92 points. The S&P 500 closed up 7 points. And in the bond market, 10-year Treasury yields are trading at 3.62% lower by negative 0.0 percentage points. This has been today's Financial Market Report, brought to you on behalf of Edward Jones, member SIPC, and financial advisor Clayton McMurdy, serving individual investors with personalized attention and financial advice at 1309 North Main in Logan. If you would like additional information, please contact our branch office at 435-753-0537. Daily commentary is also located on our website at edwardjones.com.
A big thank you from Northern Utah Chem Dry. We're the proud gold winner for best carpet cleaning for the best of Northern Utah, and we owe it to all of our fantastic community.
Join in the fun Saturday, September 28th for the second annual Center Street Giant Pumpkin Festival. This family fun event will run from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on historic Center Street in Logan. This is an all-day fall celebration with Center Street coming to life with live music, food, art, children's activities, and lots of giant pumpkins on display as they fight for the title of Center Street Giant. For more info, go to centerstreetgiant.com or call 752-2345. Sponsored by Cache Valley Bank and Anderson Seed and Garden.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News, the latest on the investigation into another apparent attempt on Donald Trump's life. What may have motivated the 58-year-old suspect? Also, should parents be allowed to see their kids' grades in college, or does it depend on who's paying those massive tuition bills? And why your old phone might be worth some serious cash. Tuesday on This Morning, America's First News. From 4 to 6 on News Talk KVNU, 610 AM and 102 FM.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. news late last week from Utah State University that they had been issued a notice of noncompliance by the United States Department of Justice, and that was directly related to what the DOJ said was an ongoing hostile environment in the football program. University officials, when announcing that they'd received this letter, also said that one person that had been fired in all of this earlier this summer has responded. The story, again, was posted to the university's website. Utah State Today is their news site. And they pledged, in response to this letter, they said, we pledge to take additional action to address persisting climate concerns in the Aggie football program. And, of course, this letter to USU said they'd failed to take prompt, equitable, and effective steps to remedy an ongoing hostile environment within the football program. That was something from way, way back. That was a promise from Utah State University from way, way back. So this is not the first time the DOJ and Utah State University have been in the news together, with the DOJ kind of, slapping USU on the hands, at least. And this was a requirement in an agreement, a resolution rather, way back in February of 2020, in which USU promised the Department of Justice that to get in line with Title IX requirements, a federal requirement for all publicly funded universities. By the way, the DOJ's letter was lengthy. If you want to read the whole thing, I've linked to it on our Facebook page. But I've gone through and highlighted some of the most relevant bits from this. But basically, what the DOJ is saying here, my paraphrase, not actual verbatim language here, but what the DOJ is saying here is, look, back in 2020, when we first looked into you as a university, we found an awful environment when it came to training on following through on reports of sexual assault or sexual harassment even. We found that where the training was adequate, there was lack of compliance. And oftentimes the university, all the way up to the top, failing to follow through on these. And that's in direct violation of Title IX rules. This could cost USU federal funding, which it depends on greatly. So USU at the time said they acknowledged these problems. They had already, this was again in 2020, they had already implemented most of the things that the Department of Justice asked for, and they were able to show that, and everybody was happy. And everyone agreed on this resolution in which they promised to take these things more seriously. So fast forward now to September of 2024, and the DOJ sends a letter to the USU saying, folks, come on. Again, my paraphrase, not verbatim language, although they could just write that and achieve the same thing. And what this came from is the DOJ has been keeping a close eye on USU since all of this started in 2020. And, well, actually 2018 is when it started, but resolved with this resolution in February of 2020. And USU made some promises, and the DOJ checks in regularly. Well, obviously with the allegations, at least, which are still being contested by Blake Anderson and the athletics vice president and former interim athletics director, Jerry Bovee, as well as Austin Albrecht and Amy Crosby, who were also let go in the same period, the first week of July. Because of this, the DOJ, of course, said, okay, we're going to start asking some questions here, because the allegations, again, still contested allegations by Anderson, at least, and Bovee, but the allegations were that there was a report of sexual misconduct involving a USU football player who is no longer at the school at all, that it weren't handled correctly. Now, again, Anderson and Bovee are both contesting this. Albrecht and Amy Crosby have said not a peep publicly, which might be smart on their part, depending on what their involvement is here and why they were let go at the same time. But Anderson and Bovee have both lawyered up, and that is still an ongoing thing. They had their appeals process windows have closed at this point, and so we're just kind of waiting to see where all that goes. But either way, it attracted the attention of the Department of Justice, understandably, considering the nature of the allegations and how this has been an issue with USU before, not handling sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, even sexual assault allegations correctly. And so from the student body, from staff. So this was all first week of July. Anderson, Bovee, Albrecht, and Crosby all let go. Another high-ranking official in the athletics department was fired. Current athletics director Diana Sabau was hired after the 2020 investigation concluded, or the 2019 with it finalized in early 2020 investigation. And she's been handling these firings directly herself, but she wasn't there in the first part. And she's taken some heat from Aggie fans. There is an interview that Eric Franson and Jason did on the Full Court Press. If you'd like to listen to that, you can find it on the Full Court Press podcast feed. It was different. I felt that Sabau was reading from a script. It didn't. I don't know. I was hoping for something a little more of a conversation, but it seemed very, checking off the bullet points kind of script reading interview, kind of giving no additional information, which I understand she can't really. There were legal ramifications in all of this. So the story the university posted, it states that in the letter, this last week, Department of Justice acknowledged the work USU had put into implementing those 2020 agreements and noted that the university had taken some very positive steps since receiving that report. The DOJ also, according to USU, reiterated the significant work remains in how the university addresses sexual misconduct-related allegations in the athletics department. Sabau, from the USU story, again, as they posted it, said, not from the DOJ's letters, Sabau said, this is a renewed opportunity for leaders and coaches in athletics to engage with university partners to create a respectful culture, and our staff is committed to this goal. This will benefit our entire campus, especially our student athletes who are already contributing positively to Cache Valley's community. So Anderson has an attorney fighting his termination. Bovee and Crosby have both filed grievances with USU, and the Department of Justice's letter, when it was made public, no one responded except Jerry Bovee, and he said in response, this is from, let me make sure I source this right. This one comes from the Herald Journal. He said in response that I continue to remain steadfast in defending not only my name and reputation, but most importantly in revealing the truth. Therefore, I wish to respond to the United States Department of Justice notice to Utah State University of noncompliance that was posted yesterday on Utah State's website. Said, first, it is my assessment that the DOJ did not put forth any effort to conduct its own independent investigation regarding the allegations against me specifically, and instead relied on the incomplete, inconsistent, and inconclusive report by Hush Blackwell, the firm that did the investigation, that was commissioned by USU. Second, Bovee said, neither Hush Blackwell nor the DOJ reports recommend the termination of anyone, including those from USU's Office of Equity, despite the fact that the DOJ determined the Office of Equity failed in its role to promptly and effectively respond by investigating reported incidents of alleged sexual misconduct by student athletes. Indeed, Bovee continues, the DOJ report found that the university failed to develop policies and procedures regarding communication between the Office of Equity and the athletics department on Title IX matters, to outline criteria and process for the Office of Equity and athletics department to determine appropriate measures during the Title IX investigation and adjudication process to properly train athletic staff on the student-athlete handbook and to adhere to its own policies. It goes on from there. So basically, Bovee says at one point in his letter, no one else at USU, including the Office of Equity, has been subjected to a public humiliation and disparagement by USU Athletic Director Diana Sabau and the USU president, Elizabeth Cantwell, who is ultimately responsible for the supervision and accountability of the Office of Equity. Only the athletic department employees were singled out for termination and public degradation, without being allowed the opportunity to respond to the report, be subjected to lesser discipline, or to resign voluntarily, which is consistent with USU policy. Bovee wraps up saying, "I look forward to defending my 30 years of work in this industry." So, basically, what you have here, you have the university citing a DOJ letter calling them out of compliance with Title IX in the athletics department for, quote, not responding appropriately or quickly enough to a toxic environment in the athletics department. And USU, my read is USU's posting that to defend themselves, to say this is why we sent these 4 people packing. Bovee is responding saying the DOJ didn't do a new investigation. They relied on the old investigation, and they didn't do anything independent this go-round to send out this new letter. And the university is throwing us under the bus, despite the DOJ's letter not in any way pointing the finger at us. That's Bovee's response. Scrutiny from the Department of Justice began, again, way back in 2017, after there were multiple news stories related to sexual assault by individuals in the football program, and I think there was one that was a fraternity or sorority life story, and the review of the USU's response started or wrapped up, and again led to these pledges by USU in February 2020. This resolution that was agreed upon between the DOJ and USU that provided sort of these these steps that USU would take. So now, fast forward to today, you have these firings. You have USU saying this DOJ letter calling us out of compliance is part of why we, are defending our decision in July to let these 4 go from the athletics department, including head coach Blake Anderson. And Anderson hasn't spoken out since this letter was revealed last week. But Bovee, again, has, and it's lengthy. I've posted it on our Facebook page, by the way, if you want to read the entire thing. But Bovee basically saying, there were others who were also out of compliance who weren't fired outside of the athletics department. Neither the original investigating firm, Hush Blackwell, nor the DOJ report recommends termination of any of us. And yet, this is what the university decided to do. This story isn't over. We'll be back right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Your 401k is likely one of your most important assets, but it's only one part of a comprehensive retirement strategy. Edward Jones can help you understand how your retirement assets fit into your entire retirement picture, so you work toward your unique retirement goals. Contact one of our 11 offices for Edward Jones in Cache Valley, or go to edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Hip or knee pain? Scan. Plan. Now you can. Ask your doctor what Mako robotics-assisted joint replacement surgery can do for you. Surgery carries risk. Recovery and results may vary. Revision surgery may be required. Ask your doctor for important safety information. Visit MakoCacheValley.com to learn more. That's MAKO CacheValley.com to learn about robotics-assisted joint replacement.
Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. If you're having heating trouble and you need your furnace fixed, just pick up the phone and call Gary Riggs. 435-512-6633. We'll come to you. Our service fee is low, just $25. We repair all brands and have certified installers. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs. Get your furnace fixed, call Gary Riggs.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. wrapping up hour one of today's show with some recognition for Utah. I almost said Utah State University again, but this is I didn't even know this happened, but there's a national competition that takes place where trail aficionados, these are mountain bikers, hikers, people who like to walk dogs, anybody that might be interested in trail systems at large. They're invited through a couple of different outdoor magazines, REI, which is established here in Utah as a retailer, and several other national chains, several manufacturers, Kelty and Patagonia, for example. This is a huge survey that's done, and they take the entire year to do it. They send these surveys out, and then they keep prodding people to respond if they haven't, and then finally, towards the end of that 12-month period, which is in September each year, they tabulate the results and they give an award. And this year, miles and miles of trails in Park City won. I thought this was really cool. And they spotlighted a Utah named Charlie Sturgis, who helped to put together this, what is basically 500 plus miles of trails that hikers, bikers. Now they, maybe not cheating. They do include some of the Nordic skiing trails in this as well, the cross country skiers. So these are trails that aren't very useful in the non-snowy months, but still, it's a trail and it is used by people. But they won basically because this is more than 475 miles of trails in the Park City area alone that weave in and out of neighborhoods and communities and subdivisions up into the mountains, down through the ski resorts. And Charlie Sturgis, who's been in Utah since 1973, originally a Chicago native, was highlighted as the brainchild behind this. I had no idea